here in the US, especially like growing up, very like conservative fundamentalist, right? We had the founding fathers, right? We didn't have any saints, but we had the founding fathers, right? George Washington,
Yeah.
Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, all those dudes, right? And there was a lot of work expended in trying to really build up a kind of a Christian mythology around them, even though many
Mm.
of them
We're
not Christians, many of them, universalists, atheists, deists, etc. But there was a lot of work put into trying to basically build up a mythology around that as well. If we could just get back to these guys,
mm.
then America would be what it's supposed to be, right? And just as a story, it's not strong enough. It doesn't have the capacity to confer identity. Like what do you do with people who don't fit into the story? Or what, I mean,
Yeah, even in
yeah.
in your own like whatever Declaration of Independence, like who are the not people in We the
All
People?
men are created equal. Women, slaves,
Yeah,
that's a different thing. But men, yeah. I mean, and I'm not just here to like rag on my country.
yeah,
I
yeah.
love the country
Sorry.
that I live in. But my point is that that story is itself is actually great, right? Those men actually lived,
Yeah.
flawed human beings or whatever, but actually lived interesting lives and did courageous things. And it's not wrong to love them or praise them.
Mm.
But if you try to put on them the weight of the whole American story, it's too much. It's
Yeah.
too much. They can't hold it, right? So the other thing is that very often this kind of story, uh, one of the deep flaws that it often has is that very often this kind of story is not participatory.
Mm.
Right? There's really like uh, now this differs. I mean, a lot of if you're really into American history, there's a lot of pretty cool participatory things. You can go to the East Coast, and do. You can go to Washington's farm, and like they have like a bourbon night there once a year, and think like, okay, I mean, there's a really cool place called Colonial Williamsburg where
Yeah.
everybody's like dressed up in period costume and they try to stay in character, and that's all fun. So like there are some ways you can participate in the stuff, but ultimately it's not very participatory, right?
Yeah.
And then then like, well, okay, but what if you're black? How do you participate in Colonial Williamsburg, right? So there's different. There's just is one of the problems with this kind of story is that for a story to really confer identity, it's got to be something that you can actually participate in. You can make it a part of your life. So it's happening. James Taylor talks about this. I mean, for Orthodox Christians, this will be a really familiar concept. But James Taylor, in A Secular Age, he talks about this idea of kairotic time, the idea that this moment, that's maybe a mythical moment or something that happened 2,000 years ago, becomes closer than yesterday,
Mm.
right? That's what happens at Pascha, is that at Pascha, the resurrection of Jesus Christ, a historical event, a mythical event, all these layers to it. But on Pascha night, on Easter night, it becomes closer than yesterday,
Yeah.
right? In terms of, and so most of these stories don't have the capacity to do that. And when
Yeah.
you see
Or at
people,
least not completely. They
yeah,
have the
not completely,
relative
yeah,
capacity to do that. Like
yeah,
you can celebrate the 4th of July or whatever. There are things you
right,
can do,
yeah, fair enough,
but
yeah,
like you said, they just if they try to stand on their own as the totalizing identity, they end up being
right,
dangerous,
yeah,
actually.
yeah. And then of course, I mean, one of the questions we've been dancing around for a long time is, and then what if you're a brand new country, right? Well, what is your mythic time, right? And I think we've kind of addressed that.
Yeah.
So let me give just like a couple of like practical applications for people. It's the Baptist preacher in me. I can't totally get away from it. But also it's a couple of practical applications, but then also a little bit about the project that I've been working on and why it's tied into all of this. So if you wanted to like come at all of this stuff and you're trying to figure out like, what do I do with it? Well, what do I do with this universal history stuff? It's very fun to like, how do I actually participate in
Mm.
this and integrate this into my life? The first thing that I'd say is for you as a Christian, the liturgical year is your epic. It's your sacred story. It's one that you can totally participate in. We have this prayer in the evening, or as part of our evening prayers in the Orthodox Church. It comes from the service of Compline, and it's addressed to the Mother of God. And I'm not going to unpack this or defend this for our Protestant friends out there. Please understand, we mean something by this that's maybe not. Well, anyway, don't freak out. I'll be happy to explain this sometime later. But we have in this prayer, we say, "You are the salvation of the race of Christians. Now, salvation, we mean like a lot more things by salvation than, you know, like
Then dying and going to heaven.
than dying and going to heaven. So that's not what we're talking. But she's the salvation of the race of Christians. In what way? Because Christ comes from her, right? And in that sense, every single Christian is descended from and is a child of Mary.
Yeah.
Right. But the thing to kind of focus in on there is actually that last bit, the generation or the race of Christians, that when you pass through the baptismal font, you become something more than just your, you know, this is why St. Paul, you know, this is why the church can simultaneously, we can talk about there's no Jew, Greek, bond, free, male, female, but then also preserve distinctions between those things in important ways.
Yeah.
We can do both because of this, right? And this is why, I mean, it's tied back to my long running theory, right? That you're not really a Christian country until you have like a definitive national icon of the Mother of God. You know, that's when you become a Christian people, right? Is because there's some connection between her and the incarnation, some connection between her,
between the land, between the notion of
between
the,
all those
the
things.
Body, right? It's all these things that are there, you know, the that which holds, right? It's like that's in some of the motherland, or however you want to think about it, all these ways of describing it.
So then, and I'll say this especially to my like fellow Orthodox converts, right, is that just sort of understand and accept you've received a faith which is, you know, like Syrio, Greco, Jewish in its origins, right? Like all the early writers, right? All the early hymns, all these different things. They're not written by people from America, right? So you're receiving this. I know it. Listen, that's a dumb thing to say, but also it's like weirdly freeing to realize that. So just like realize that you're receiving this faith that's so much older than you, and that wasn't made with your tastes in mind. And when people get like really like, let's say, agitated about how, you know, well, when are we going to enculturate? When are we going to have like a single American jurisdiction? When are we going to have, you know, like American culture really represented? And what about the music and you know, all that stuff? Like just like settle down.
Yeah.
Settle down and accept the faith that you've been given, but know that by doing so, by just like faithfully saying your prayers, going to the services, participating as fully in the life of your parish as you can, that you're not just hopefully participating in the salvation of your own soul, but you're also participating in the salvation of your ancestors and of your culture. And I cannot stress enough how important it is to fully accept and receive this deposit of tradition if enculturation is ever going to happen in a natural way.
Yeah.
It's just like we were talking about. Committees can't do it. It won't stick. It's got to naturally arise.
It's got to just arise out of all kinds of things that we won't be able to describe afterwards.
So that in 500 years, when the autocephalous Orthodox Church of Texas has officially replaced hummus with guacamole as the Lenten dip of choice, you know, like, but just like
nobody will remember how it happened.
Nobody will remember, but like
the way we do things.
In 500 years, we'll have American Orthodoxy, for good or for ill. It'll exist, right? And but we're not going to get there by like just trying to force things. So anyway, so save your family, cultivate just kind of a normal holy life, and wait a few hundred years and see what happens.